You have only had a few fights in the UFC, but you've had a mixture of sort of the arenas and the apex. Do you have a preference with fighting sort of in front of a big crowd, or do you prefer the more intimate settings?
Definitely the big crowd, because when we got into the sport, it was all to perform in front of the brightest lights and the most fans in attendance. And the Apex is more personal, like you said, like intimate, but I don't really like it. It's weird. It's quite, I feel like a sparring session in some ways.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've heard some fighters say that they preferred it because they could hear their coaches, and then so they were able to zone in. Then other people said that they preferred the crowd because it just really sort of like got their fire lit underneath them.
Yeah, I mean that is one of the pros of being in the Apex, but at the same time, it's like there are the pros far outweigh the cons for a crowd. Having a crowd there is just a complete game changer.
I guess that's why you did the sport. You didn't do it so you could sit there and spar all day. You did it so you could entertain people
Exactly.
instead of the
Ex-
mass.
Exactly. Get sell out the biggest arenas. That was the dream when we were kids.
Do you feel that there's any sort of extra pressure coming from like an undefeated record, like you're 12-0 now, and you're coming up against a really tough opponent who's had, although he's new to the UFC, he has got an extensive pro record. Do you feel that there's any extra pressure coming with that?
The O is superficial. It's how you when you go into a fight, you don't take the O with you in the cage. Just what your training camp and what you've done the whole camp. So the O is just a pretty little thing on the record. Um, but all the champions have a loss. What does that say? How important really is that O? So yeah, it's nice. It shows that I've been perfect in the cage essentially so far, and I plan to continue that, of course. But you can't rest on your laurels and just thinking you have an O and makes you better than people. No, no. The work has to be put in the gym, and pressure. Maybe it's external pressure is coming from outside, but for me, I don't feel anything. I feel like it's a fight between me and another man, and I don't look at records too much, to be honest.
So something I did notice in your sort of your game, you have this like very well-rounded mixed martial arts talent, but you have this vicious kicking game, but you also tie that in with your grappling. I was thinking
Mhm.
about, say you get through Victor Hugo this weekend, how would you feel about a matchup with someone like Jose Aldo? Because I feel like your styles kind of complement each other, and I think if you're able to break through into this top 15. He's coming off a loss. I know he shouldn't look ahead of it, but I thought this would be like the most magical matchup. Is that something you'd sort of be interested in?
Did somebody leak something in my camp? Because that's kind of who I had in mind.
Really? So
Yeah,
I basically predicted your post-fight call out.
we basically did it. Yeah, it's who I had in mind. The fight would have to be a very impressive performance, and then that's who I had in mind. But yeah, Jose Aldo is. I mean, I was probably 11 years old when I first watched him, and I know he's gonna retire soon, so I want to make sure I get a fight with him before he's off. So, if I could pick my next opponent in an ideal world, it would be Jose Aldo. So, he's spot on there.
Oh man, I hope it happens. Okay, so we do know that Javid, your brother, is also in the Bantamweight and also in UFC. Something that I always thought was quite interesting about Nick and Nate Diaz, the two most iconic brothers in MMA. Would you ever fight on the same card as your brother, or is the pressure that comes with being a fighter and then having your sibling on the same card just too much?
For most occasions, I would prefer not to fight on the same card, unless it's a real special card, a real special occasion, and we're both kind of like main carding or something, or main event co-main or something like that. But for the most part, it is a hassle. Just just in terms of, yeah, I guess it would be a bit of a distraction in most situations. But unless it's a real big card, and then we could kind of vibe off the energy and the occasion of it. But if it's just like a regular card, no, it's definitely not something we want to do.
Well, it's something to look forward to in the future. Just keep like building on it, and then you can be the future of the two most iconic brothers in the UFC, which would be something nice.
Like, hopefully we can. I mean, the goal was always like one day to headline in London, main co-main, me and Javid. So that would be amazing. I'm still yet to fight in London. Every year that I tell the UFC put me in London, and for whatever reason they don't quite put me in London. I grew up there, So, but hopefully this coming year in summer they should be back to London, and that's where I want to fight.
I mean, look, the fight time was, I mean, crazy. If you did fight in London, would you be prepared or open to it being at sort of a pay-per-view time, which is not, I mean, obviously it was in the middle of the night last time, or would you prefer it to be a fight night where you could be in a more appropriate fighting time?
See, that's interesting because of course we want the biggest occasion and the biggest fights. Um, but that whole morning thing, I was there in attendance. It was ridiculous, to be honest with you. It was insane. So yeah, if we were to go to London, I would hope it would be a fight night, to be honest with you, because just that the timing of everything was a problem.
Yeah, I definitely think that the fight night where Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman went at it, like that was a bigger spectacle than it was in the pay-per-view just purely because of the time. So I think it seemed like it was almost in a reverse in terms of the atmosphere and the sort of like the impact that it had.
Definitely, definitely. Like I said, my brother was there for the Kamaru and Leon one, which was regular time, and he was telling me, and that was London. So he was telling me the atmosphere was insane, it was ridiculous. And then I was there for Manchester this year, and Manchester's usually way louder than London. And it was crickets. It was quite silent compared to what I expected. And I don't blame them because it was like 6 a.m. by the time Bilal and Leon walked out. So yeah, absolutely. I think it would be a mistake on the UFC's behalf if they do the whole 6 a.m. thing again.
Yeah, I think I'd actually prefer it to be a fight night. Like even the Cage Warriors fights, because I know that you also fought in the Cage Warriors. When you have their fight cards, when they're in Manchester and up north, I mean, they are insane. So automatically assumed dual fight card UFC Manchester, it was just going to be explosive, and it just kind
Yeah.
of didn't really, it wasn't able
No,
to deliver in that way. So
no, I agree. I agree.
I mean, you've come from such an amazing, humble beginnings. I mean, your story of being, refugees from Afghanistan. Is there anything that you would like to sort of people or fans to know about you, or that you find inspiring about your upbringing to where you are now and where you began?
I mean, it may sound like a cliche, but and I almost cringe by me saying this because like, who am I? But um, I'm like really a regular person. Me and all the other UFC guys and the champions and how I got here was just through I had a dream and passion and work ethic took me to a position I'm in now and where I will be in the future, hopefully. So, um, and if I'm honest with you, there's like I said, I'm ordinary, but I would I think there's ordinary and then there's starting life a step back behind the starting line, which is in a refugee camp in a country that's been at war with superpowers for the last 30 years. So my point is if I can get to such good positions, I promise you anybody can. Because to be honest with you, I'm not even supposed to be here. Not me, not my brother, not my family. We were lucky. God has blessed us, and I just want to, make the most and take advantage of the blessings.
I mean, we did see Francis Ngannou make a return to the cage on the weekend, and I think if anyone can find inspiration, I think that a lot of fighters have the most inspiring stories of where they come from. So when you can take that, you think you've started from behind the line, and you can see the way you are now, it's the most encouraging and beautiful thing to experience.
Yeah, yeah, thank you, absolutely, and that's what makes this sport so interesting. Is everybody has a different background, everybody has a different journey, and yeah, that's what makes this sport so beautiful, to be honest.
I always like to ask what sort of legacy you'd like to leave behind when you're sort of done with the sport, both as a person and as a fighter.
Legacy, to be honest, as a fighter, I want to leave the sport when my book is closed. I want to be known as one of the greatest. That's always been the goal. So, I have checkpoints along the way. It's after this, win this fight, then get to top 15, then top 10, top 5, become champion, become pound for pound, Hall of Fame, and just leave. And I want to see as many of these boxes as I can tick. And as long as I'm in the sport, it's to be the best. The money and whatever else comes with it will be nice. It will be a byproduct. But my main goal is always to be the best, and I'm really, really obsessed with leaving a name, leaving a mark. I don't know why. I've always been a student of history and some of the great kings and generals and stuff, and it always, you know, part of me, the ego in me said like, why can't like all of these guys left a name? Why can't I leave a name? Type of thing. So that's what it is to leave this sport and be known as one of the greats.
It's really important to keep that goal in mind. I mean, whether you want to be a prize fighter or a legacy fighter, because it means just you stay on track as you go. Obviously, you want to make money, but you really need to know like what your steps are going to be in order to achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to know what your goals are. You have to know what you sorry. You have to know what your goals are. You have to know why you're doing the sport because ultimately that's what fuels you.
Of course. What got you sort of started into MMA in the first place?
Um, well, it was kind of a natural trajectory for me and Javid. We were always very athletic. We were always in some ways troublemakers. So you know the two leads towards sport, you know, and we played football for a long time, quite a good level. But it just got to a point, and at some point in our early teenage years, we became really big fans of MMA, and we were like, okay, we're into sports. We have a lot of energy. Um, I don't know, just let's give MMA a try.
Who's your football team?
Mine is Real Madrid.
Really? What about in Premier League?
Premier League, I've never been too keen on supporting a team in like I follow it, of course, but I've never had an affiliation with a team. I don't know
Oh,
why. When I was young, I was like 5, 6 years old. I saw the white shirts and R9 was my favorite player. Zidane, all of those. I just since then I've been hooked.
so this weekend, what's your prediction for your own fight? How do you see you getting the victory? And then if I could get one for the main event, that would be awesome as well.
For my fight, I think I will get the finish. I feel like it's a good stylistic matchup for me to get him out of there. And how I get the finish, I can never say, you know, because I have so many tools and all depends on what they give me. The main event, wow, it's a very tough one. Ilya Taporia is just the momentum and everything on his side is big, but stylistically, I do think Max is probably a bad matchup for him. So I'll lean towards Max.